Meet The Lot, native token of Lukki Exchange and the most potential tool for investing this year. Trade now on P2B, B2B and Lukki.io.
Crowdfunding scams. A little bit, there's a difference, and I'm not really talking about these guys. And the reason why I brought these guys up is because it's difficult to be in the industry that we're in, because there isn't much money to be made on the Bitcoin development side. So we have to build what we consider inferior products for clients who don't understand exactly what they're building, and that's simply where the market's at. Now the problem in Miami is we get idiots like this who are actually scamming people and trying to crowdfund with absolutely no type of legitimate business model that give not only our city and state a bad name, but also the industry, and that's part of the issue. With some shitcoins, IXCoin, Namecoin, Zcash, Dash, Ripple, Bcash, which for all intents and purposes is the tokenization of Bitmain, Bitcoin SV. And then you kind of flow into, the more scammy side. And frankly, you start to get into the scammy side here, right? This is where it begins. But at least these are actual networks. These are actual altcoins. These are actual cryptocurrency networks. This was at building on Bitcoin as well. So why are they shitcoins? And I'm going to try and rush through this because I'm low on time. And why are they inferior? The three things, and I tell my class this all the time, the reason why this space is so strange and complicated and you get a weird array of characters is because, for the most part, Bitcoin, blockchain, the cryptocurrency space is a combination of economics, computer science, and game theory. And it's really tough to find someone or people that understand those disciplines well enough, and well enough to be able to manipulate that. And that's why it's a little bit strange. But really it's utility. So your coin, your token, your whatever, has to have some sort of utility that's kind of amplified through distribution, right? What does distribution look like? Do you have, is it open mining? Is there a pre-mine? Is it a crowdfunding promise for a coin later on? Like what's your distribution scheme look like? And then culture, me at least, because the technology isn't even the hardest part. It's more of who's involved in your economy, why they're in your economy, and kind of what value they bring, and that does define everything that you do in your cryptocurrency ecosystem. So I mean, this was just a great example. Bitcoin is resilient, it's principled, it's native to the internet ideals, and it's a great brand. So where does the sense of entitlement come from? Who are these fools? Why are they such dicks? And by that I mean Bitcoin maximalists. And I throw myself in that category to a certain extent. But to give you an idea, this is what the space looked like in 2010, 2011, November 2011, May 2013, and December. So I've seen this time and time again, and I kind of equate like longtime Bitcoiners to just jaded warriors. They've really just seen it all, and they've lost a lot in the process. So you have to grant a certain level of respect to them as well. And there's a reason why they're such assholes, right? I mean, if you go to war and you come back and some kid's crying about not getting into a college, it's going to piss you off, and it's kind of in the same category here. Something I wanted to touch on with respect to why we build shitcoins, like why I'm in the shitcoin space, why I'm a shitcoiner or whatever. I believe in competing currencies, and there's a period in history that's kind of lost, which is called the wildcat banking era. Is anyone familiar with this at all? So it was a time of competing currencies here in the U.S. It wasn't federally regulated. Any bank could issue their own currency, issue their own promissory note. And that happened from, I think, 1837 to like 64, somewhere there. And that was fascinating, and that was obviously problematic because you had what were called wildcat banks, which were banks that were simply issuing promissory notes without having anything in reserve or without having any sort of genuine backing or foundation in what they're promising. I wanted to play this really quickly, and I really hope there's sound. There probably won't be. Let's see.
This is a moment.
Fuck. Oh, good. You're a genius. Thank you.
Free markets, we may not entirely agree which form of monetary system
You guys hear?
is most favorable to an efficient market operation of the market.
Because you would prefer to have competing money, so that...
I'm absolutely convinced that no government is capable of, politically or intellectually, of providing exactly the amount of money which is needed for smooth economic development. And I should be all in favor In fact, I'm convinced that we shall never have decent money again before we take from government the monopoly of issuing money and allow competing institutions, of course under different names, not issue the same money, but competing monies, and let people decide which kind of money they prefer to use.
Of course, they already can do.
Okay. And that was Friedrich Hayek, by the way. So yeah. From experience, it's an amazing endeavor to work on a shitcoin, or to work in the shitcoin space, right? So one of our most recent projects was a fork of Bitcoin and ZCL. So we forked Bitcoin and ZCL. We took their UTXO sets. And Chris, we went off the ZCL chain, right? Did we fork off the ZCL chain or Bitcoin? Right, but was it a brand new chain? Yeah. And we added masternodes from Dash. I put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into architecting our inflation cycle, into architecting the network. And we dedicated a lot of time and resources to that, mainly because we wanted to see what this experiment would look like. We launched the white paper, talked to the community, and on Discord, the only questions and the only statements that were being propagated was "when moon," right? Which is a little bit demoralizing, because I'm in this space to build lasting infrastructure, not to just build some shitty, some shitty type of coin. But it's an experiment, and the reason why I think it's so important, and the reason why I'm talking about it now, is because I'm a capitalist and I believe in a free market of competition, a free market of currency competition. So it's a strange dynamic to be so Bitcoin affirmative, but to also be so heavily involved in alternative currencies that are sometimes a threat to Bitcoin, when in fact they're actually validating Bitcoin's existence. I want to see these chains fail on their own merit, right? That's just how it works. And that doesn't take anything away from Bitcoin or from the people that are building these coins. They're simply experimenting. I mean, we know now from experience that having masternodes on your base chain is a terrible idea. Right? We know having ZK snarks on your base chain is a terrible idea. We know from experience forking a fork of Zcash that, I mean, and we've seen this recently as well, that there's a massive vulnerability in ZK snarks. There's a massive vulnerability in every Zcash fork. And a lot of that can only, I mean, those really are hard lessons learned when you're actually involved in the nitty-gritty, when you're behind the scenes, when you're talking to people that are trying to manipulate your network, when you understand that, or when you see in kind of a vessel that one mining group can genuinely destroy your entire network, and you, as a centralized development organization, can also affect the entire network, and your investors are simply sitting there at will, and they can or cannot take part in this. So they have a purpose. Litecoin, for instance, in my opinion, is Bitcoin's testnet. I mean, Lightning was launched on Litecoin first, almost as a testing suite, and then onto Bitcoin, and it serves as a on-ramp as well. These things have a purpose. Not all of them, but they do have a purpose. So the maximalist argument generally, I mean, in my opinion, from what I can gather, is that altcoins are awful because they're taking away people's economic freedom if you genuinely believe that Bitcoin is the means to economic freedom. So you're robbing people in a sense. I don't necessarily buy that, because it's difficult to be so combative against human nature. People will try and compete, and that's simply what we do. There are stupid people and there are smart people, and there's something called survival of the fittest. I mean, it's simply an ebb and flow of markets. But the reason why it's so good and the reason why it's so important is because it makes you a better developer. It makes you a better analyst, a salesperson, marketer, leader, whatever, when you've worked in an inferior system, right? Like, you've seen all the problems firsthand. You understand how bad things can be on the other end, and you can only bring lessons learned to, in this case, Bitcoin. So I think that's the last slide. Yeah, and this is just something that Zach said yesterday that was stuck in my head, which is Bitcoin is the sum of all forks. So, I mean, as someone with an economics background, I just kept thinking, well, then are altcoins inflationary to Bitcoin? And I think the answer is no, but that was just a schizophrenic thought I had just before the talk. So yeah. Thank you. Sorry it was so scattered. I started late and then it kind of threw everything off. Yeah.
What odds would you put on 2029 there is a coin superior and larger market cap than Bitcoin?
I would say little to none. Yeah. I mean, it's weird because it's so socio-political, right? And there's this idea of Bitcoin having this immaculate conception, which is also religious. But if you look at other networks and you look at the community and you look at kind of where Bitcoin Cash is at now, it's not exactly a hard thing to accept. Where it's almost impossible to launch another real Bitcoin. Well, and how long does market cap, or how long is market cap a good indicator as well? And that's a valid point. I think the way I answered your question was I guess, will it outplay Bitcoin? And I don't really know what metric I'm using here, but I don't think anything will be as when I go to different companies and I present blockchain, it's weird because I'm really presenting Bitcoin, but I'm also presenting a chain of blocks, right? I mean, Peter Todd describes blockchain is simply a chain of blocks, and I believe that. I do think enterprises can have a consortium and call it a blockchain to a certain extent. That's inherently less secure and less decentralized than Bitcoin. That's a fact. But at the same time, Bitcoin has proof of work, so it makes it a little bit different. I forgot where I was going with that, but sorry. Yeah. Anyone else? 4? Yeah. Well, if the objective of having an economic, if the objective is to have a decentralized economic network, then I guess that would be the only metric I'd be using. I don't think you'll have anything that's decentralized as Bitcoin Core, basically, and that's the most important part for me. All good? Thank you.